Well, good morning. We're going to go ahead and get started. Thank all of you for making time to come out to Thomasboro. We're really excited about visiting. This is part of my promise to get out to every one of our schools, and so I'll have to look over to my friend and colleague Letarja, because I end up losing count about exactly how many schools I've visited, but I know we're well past the 100 mark, and I really can't wait to see more of this school. I've heard so many wonderful things. It's a school that we should be very proud of. Quality leadership, focus on increasing the academic rigor for all students, and has gotten really outstanding growth the last several years, and so we're very proud of this school. What I'm proud about today is to have the opportunity to talk about a program that I've always been very excited about. It's a program that I believe that when implemented well has gotten amazing results all across the country, and that's the AVID program. I'm going to allow these two amazing leaders sitting up here with me to tell you more about it. But AVID is part of a commitment that we believe that all students deserve rigor. That the best way to close an achievement gap is not to lower the bar, but to raise the academic bar, and that a rising tide can and will lift all ships. And so, but you can't just raise the bar and leave a strategy to hope. You have to be very intentional. And so AVID is a very deliberate program designed to take students and start to expose them to the academic rigor and the sort of skills that they're going to need to be able to access for them to be able to go on to high school and take AP and IB courses. And then once students take AP and IB courses, the data is very clear, and that is that students who have taken at least one AP course during the course of their high school career do infinitely better in college. If they take several AP courses, the chance that they're going to graduate college within 4 years rises exponentially. And so programs like AVID are an important part of our offerings here in CMS. When it's implemented well, it's just a joy to behold. Our zone superintendent, Denise Lipp, was just talking about being in the AVID classroom that you're going to get a chance to visit at the conclusion of this press conference. And her exact quote, I think Denise said, "You didn't want to leave last week when you're visiting." And I think the students here feel the same way. So with that, I'd like to introduce to you Jan McKeever, the principal here at Thomasboro, and Frankie Pollock, who is going to talk to us more about AVID. So, Jan.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Morrison, and welcome everyone here to Thomasboro Academy. This is a very exciting day for us. I just wanted to speak a little bit about AVID, about our classes, the instruction that you'll see in our AVID courses, and how we began the implementation, because this is our first year with the program, and I was extremely excited to be able to implement this program this year at our school. I think that it's extremely important for all the reasons that you just named, and keep in touch with many students that I taught who went through the program and that eventually on to college and then have graduated from college as well. So I find the program to be equally as important. This summer we had the opportunity to attend the conference for AVID, and it was an entire site team of the middle school teachers that are teaching the students that will be in the program itself, as well as the site coordinator, Mr. Pollock, myself, and the elective teacher, Ms. Simpson, who you'll be able to see a little bit later on today in the AVID classroom. And that gave us the bonding opportunity that we needed to be able to take this program and implement it fully and lift it off the ground here at Thomasboro. One of the exciting things about being a pre-K through 8 school is that your population is a little bit less at the middle school grade levels. So we were able to offer AVID to every single 6th grade student in our school this year in the first year of implementation. The students will take the course by semester, and they will be the students at the end of the year will then apply for the program, and they will go through the interview process that AVID uses in order to be able to be in the year-long courses for 7th and 8th grade. Our current 7th and 8th grade students that are in the program are a full year in the program, and they were selected based on grades, based on other academic areas, as well as teacher recommendation, EOG scores, and of course some of them selected as well to be a part of the program. So the part that they did not have to do this year to be involved was the interview process, because we did not have Ms. Simpson here at the end of last year to be able to do that. So we have kicked off. It has been extremely successful so far. The classroom focuses on the college prep skills that students need in order to be successful not only in college but first in high school, so that they can graduate successfully from high school. Organizational skills, test taking skills, Something as easy as how do you take notes the right way? And then the tutorial, which we are very excited to lift off the ground this year during that elective time, someone helping them with those questions that they may still have from the math classroom, from the language arts classroom, from what they were reading in science that day or the lab that they may have done, to take them to the next level of success. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Pollack, who is our site coordinator, and he can talk to you about the process or expectations that we have of our students and further implementation.
Thank you. Here at Thomasville Academy, we identified students who would have potential to have the organization and instructional skills that Avid provides, which will lift them to where they need to be once we put those and implement it into those classrooms. Each student receives a binder, which is used to take Cornell notes, homework, and basically to organize them as a student overall throughout the entire school day. This year we will focus on 3 of the most important essential standards that Avid provides. One of those was preparing students for the college preparatory courses, which we had earlier spoke on, because at some point in time they want to go into those algebra, geometry, trig courses that will prepare them to go into the college and university setting and be comfortable there. We want to implement the tutors, which Ms. McKeever spoke on earlier, because not only is the teacher going to be an impact in that classroom, we also want to have added and additional resources as well added into those classes. Lastly, of those 3, we wanted to make sure that the literacy piece was also focused on in our classroom. That is a very big deal here at Thomasville Academy, and with the Avid strategies that were implemented, we would like to use those to implement and focus on literacy in the classroom. With the instructional and the enrichment activities that have been put into the Avid classroom, students should be very well-rounded, and definitely we want to focus on them not only attending high school, we want them to graduate from high school successfully, we want to be accepted into college, be successful in college, and then we also want to see them graduate from college. So that's the big stuff all the way from down from where Avid begins. So today, we're going to have an opportunity to visit an Avid classroom, and you'll see a very inviting, comfortable, college-driven atmosphere once you walk inside the classroom. We like to implement technology. You'll see our students today in a live blog where they will be basically communicating with the teacher through the blog, asking questions, even putting their ideas and concepts of how they would definitely put into the lesson, or if it's going to be up to them. So it's more like a facilitated classroom where the teacher allows the students to take ownership of that. So that's what we'll be seeing as we visit those classrooms today.
So I think the important thing for our school district, and why we're so important on highlighting this program, is that as we start to re-examine CMS and how we're going to start defining success, we know that making sure that we're not just graduating students, but that diploma is a passport for a better tomorrow, that diploma actually means that a young person is ready to go to college and not need remediation. And so one of the best levers that we have is to get students into courses that are college equivalent courses, like advanced placement courses in high school and IB. And so what you're going to see on the part of CMS is an even more intensive focus on having more AP and IB opportunities for students, to cast a wider net, to examine and make sure that we have equity across all of our schools in terms of the number of AP courses offered, the supports for students so that students aren't just taking the classes, but they're taking them successfully. And that doesn't just start at the high school level. You have to reverse engineer those skills all the way down to the elementary level. So what is it that a student needs to do in elementary, leading to middle, to lead to high school, that allows them to successfully take an AP course and do it successfully, and to be able to graduate really ready to ensure that when they go to college, they don't need those remedial courses. So we're very proud of this program. We're proud of the way it's being implemented. And before we take any other questions outside of the AVID program, I'd like to stop, and while we've got our principal and AVID coordinator up here, address any questions you may have about this particular program.
I know we'll get a peek into AVID in just a second, but I mean, how does an AVID classroom look different from a regular 6th, 7th grade classroom? What are you doing differently?
Well, this is an actual elective class that you're going to actually see. So she is focusing with the kids based on what the teachers have already done in the classroom, helping them organize that information. So the way they take notes in the classroom They then will come back to her, and she'll be going through binder checks that will see if the students are utilizing the skills. One of the biggest skills that we focus on immediately is Cornell Notes, which is a type of way to take notes for the students. And so she is focusing on making sure that they're utilizing those skills when they are not with her outside of the room. What you would see in a classroom that one of our site team members is teaching, maybe one of our language arts teachers or our math teachers, is that when they get ready to tell the kids it's time to take notes, they're going to remind them, make sure you have your Cornell Notes set up, make sure you have, kind of walk them through it for the first few weeks that they're implementing that strategy, so that it's being done throughout the entire day in all core classes, and that they're organized that way. Something as small as taking the last 5 minutes of class to say to the kids, take your binders out, let's put what we did today in the binder, where it belongs, in the section that it belongs, write down your homework, keep your log. Because if we don't take the time to do that with them or give them the opportunity to do that at the end of every class, they're not going to do it at the end of the day, and that makes it more difficult for the elective teacher. So, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think it helps.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it hard to identify that potential at a young age, or is there any word, 7th and 8th grade, having some kids in and some not, leaving some potential behind?
Well, we've looked at the data in order to create this class. This is something, like we said earlier, it starts early on. We're identifying students who, like I said earlier, have that potential, and we're just going to implement on the class basis, like we said, the elective class, but then it spreads into other classes. So everybody eventually is going to get touched by the AVID program. It starts with the class, it goes to the site team implements it in their classroom, and then it overall affects the entire school. So we don't look at ourselves as an AVID school, an AVID class, but as an AVID school.
How much is AVID? How much is it cost to implement AVID?
That's a good question for Ann Clark, because I know that she was very instrumental in making sure that we were able to have that this year. That was something that I asked for in the first year of the pre-K 8s, but the budget had not been set for that in that first year, so she made it happen for the second year. The classroom library itself is a very big chunk, but we asked for our community volunteers and people that donate to the school to be sure that we had enough binders for all of the students and pencil pouches for all the students. Those 3-inch binders are about $6 a piece, so they can be, pretty expensive to buy that for an entire middle grades. But we were able to receive those donations here.
We'll follow up and we'll get you the exact amount that it costs here. It really is site specific, because do you have a dedicated teacher, a half-time teacher? It's professional development, it's the materials of instruction. So it's implemented at different sites at different levels, so there's not a cost that's specific for each site, but we'll follow up and get you that one for what it is here at the school.
Who's the ideal AVID student?
I can answer that. I think the ideal AVID student is a student that has the potential to do better, but still needs that support because they're coming from a low economic, socioeconomic situation, or somewhere that they have not had that previous support. A lot of times we identify AVID students as those students who actually don't want to be in AVID. We have to actually say, do you want to do that? No, I don't want to do that. But once we get them in and they get the support, they also get that family structure that comes with being in that class, then they find themselves successful. So we usually find that student that's right on that bar line. We usually don't tend to go after the one that's already prepared to go that route. We want that one that just needs that extra support. And once they get those organizational skills and everything else that comes along with the AVID program, that they will rise up and be successful.
Is this the idea that it'll last through the whole middle school years then, or is it just
Yes, it is ideal that it'll last in this middle school as well into high school.
But I think one of the things I always talk to our high school principals about is, again, you have to continue to cast a wide net, and you have to constantly look for students and get them interested in an advanced placement course, an IB course, and create a network of support around that student. And again, that has to be as personalized as the different students that we serve. And so in some cases it will be something that will build a specific skill set. In many cases it will be just the comfort for a student taking that exposed class for the first time and giving them a network, study buddies. And sometimes it's when the class is not very diverse in terms of the makeup of who we're serving, to make sure that every student walked in that class and automatically feels welcomed into the class. And so we have to approach it student by student, classroom by classroom. But again, what we have an obligation to do in CMS is make sure that as we look across our high schools, that there's not one high school that has 20 or 22 AP offerings, another high school has 10 or 12. That we have situations where there are barriers to some students gaining access and others not. When you ask what's the ideal student look like, at the elementary and middle school, really it's every student that we want to expose to that rigor. You know, across our country right now, there's this conversation around, is it college prep or is it a highly skilled career prep, CTE? And I understand why people ask the question, and I also understand by the time a young person gets to high school, offering them some sort of choice in terms of are they more on a track for a college preparatory versus something that might be more career technology oriented. But the elementary and middle school level, our obligation is to get every student ready so that when they make that choice at high school or when they've gone on through their high school experience, I don't want to ever tell a young person that you should go to college and you shouldn't. Okay, that's a young person's decision. What we want to make sure is we prepared every student so that the choice is theirs and the preparation has been good and it meets the needs of that young person, that family.
Is this like a test case for CMS? Can this go to other schools, or where the AVID program?
I wouldn't say it's a test case. You know, the thing about AVID is it's a national program. It's one of those national programs that actually I think holds up pretty well even when it's implemented poorly. When it's implemented really well, it gets great results. There's not a lot of programs like that. AVID tends to be one of them. And so I think it's just another part of a menu of ways to try to raise the level of rigor, to expose more students to curriculum that is robust and will put them on a pathway for college. And so I don't think it's a panacea, but I think it's a great program that when implemented well across our school district will get more students ready for the rigor that we're trying to set for them on that pathway from elementary, middle, to high school.
So it's more than just a school?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what I'm saying. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
How many schools is it in?
Okay. We'll get that for you.
And I know AVID has been around for several years in CMS, so I just wanted to know, is it the same as it was when it's implemented a few years ago? Does it change year by year, and are there any disadvantages or anything that you think AVID should address that is not in?
I can speak to that. The program has actually, well, it's been around since as long as I've been in CMS. It's because I was an AVID teacher. I was part of the site team that implemented it in my language arts classroom as an 8th grade teacher. So it has been here for quite some time. And it did just change, the program did just change over the last year. That was why it was so important that we were able to go to the conference to find out those 11 essential standards that they were, the essentials that they were focusing on. It has not been a great change. I think a lot of it has been due to budgetary reasons across the nation. When I was a teacher, we paid tutors to come into the school and be a part of the AVID elective class, and that phased out somewhere right around the first few years of budget cutting because we could not afford to have them there. So just giving those site coordinators and elective teachers the resources and ideas, a toolkit, if you will, because it is actual toolkit. There are great resources that they give you to be able to overcome some of those challenges that they used to be able to provide for you, but now are not necessarily there, so that the program can still be as successful. As far as disadvantages, I would just say the only time that I would see it to be a disadvantage is when a school does not take advantage of the situation and spread it throughout. You can only fit so many students into one elective course. There's only one teacher. No matter how big your school is, in most of our schools that have AVID, there's only one teacher. So that's why it's so important for that site team to be such a big part of the decision making, so that they're able to spread it out into their classrooms like Mr. Pollack was speaking about. Because I may have 28 kids in my language arts class, and only 15 of those students may be actual AVID students. But when I say we're going to do Cornell notes for this, or we're going to do a Socratic seminar on this novel that we just read, I'm using AVID strategies with every single child in that room, not just the 15 students. Those 15 students, though, become leaders of that classroom, which then, pushes them up the bar even more so.
So you said all all sixth graders? Or
We
did
were
have
able to do
right?
all sixth graders at Thomasboro.
Okay. And just seventh and eighth graders in
That was a select because they are year long. Right.
So what we're doing now is we're transition before we go to our classroom visit, and I want to thank our principal and our AVIC coordinator. Great job. Appreciate it. Can't wait to go see the classes. I'm going to ask Denise Watts, our zone superintendent, to join me up here. We're touch base very quickly on some of the topics that I covered last night at the school board meeting, and take any questions you may have, and then go on to the important event, which is go see great teaching and learning in our students in the classroom. So to begin, I want to give you an update on our Door-to-Door for Student Achievement campaign. We spoke about this at the last media briefing. As you know, when we say in CMS that we're about every child, every day for a better tomorrow, every child means every child. And so we have an obligation to look at the students who have not yet returned to school and try to ascertain where they may be. Have they left our area? Are they in other educational programs, either here in CMS or in the state or elsewhere outside of, or inside of our country? And then try to get any student that we can back into our public education system. And so to date, we started off with 700 students that had not shown up for school when we first started our campaign. These 700 students range over 20 of our high schools. To date, we've made 103 actual visits to homes, and Denise and I were both sharing some experiences we had. We actually passed a house on the way to Allenburg this morning where Denise had just visited, and actually just found out that the young lady is returning to West Charlotte, so we're really excited about that. As of today, with 103 home visits that we've made, we actually have confirmed 18 students have re-enrolled in CMS. We expect many more to re-enroll, but we just want to report students who have actually said they're coming back, re-enrolled, and actually started classes in CMS. Though I don't know if we accounted for your young lady. I think that would make 19. That's good news, Denise. We've also learned that there are 419 students that we've been able to direct into other educational programs. These are students that, because of where they are in terms of credits, some of the best options may be CPCC with the GED, Job Corps, the Q Foundation. So part of this work has been to take these young people and maybe direct them in terms of where there might be some additional options. Obviously, we know that getting a diploma is incredibly important, and so part of the joy of this work is, even if it does not have them come back to our school district, to get them to some sort of educational program to continue their learning is critically important. One home visit that I was a part of, and several of you were there, not only were we able to get the young lady back into school, but her sister was going on to CPCC and getting her program, and will go on to a nursing degree. So again, the fact that we're helping young people find other options, even if it isn't to return to our school district, is part of why this work is so important. Also want to update you on immunizations. That was a topic at the last media briefing, and so we currently have, as of yesterday, 300 kindergarten students who are still not met the requirements with immunizations, and 285 sixth graders. I want to put that in context because we have been very, very diligent on this work. Last year at this time, there were 770 kindergartners who had not yet met that requirement. We've gotten that down to 300 this year. Last year, it was 1,489 sixth graders who had not yet gotten their immunizations. We've gotten that down to 285 this year. But we don't want any young person to be out of school because of this issue. So we appreciate our partners in Health and Human Services. We've gotten great cooperation from many local clinics. I want to especially thank Commissioner Val-Malik, who has really worked very diligently to try to get different services to meet the needs of our students. And this, again, ask our parents to, whatever it might take, let us help you get our young people back in school. It's critically important. At the school board meeting last night, one of the issues that we did is I took off of the agenda a vote by the school board on the multi-track calendar at First Ward Elementary School. And I want to make sure, I always say I'm a teacher on special assignments, so I want to make sure I'm keeping up my teaching skills here, because we tend to throw two words around as if they are exactly the same. They're much different words with different meanings. You have multi-track schools, or you also have year-round schools. Okay, and to have a student in a year-round school where they are getting year-round education is what is happening, or what we're at least considering in the Project Lift Zone, and Denise can speak about that in a minute. But that's where a student is having the opportunity to not only attend school throughout the year, not have that long summer break that we know when students are impacted by poverty, where the research tells us that they can lose almost half of what they learned the prior year. So not only that we can extend their learning so that we limit that amount of summer learning loss, but that we give them the gift of additional instructional days. And so it's the 180 plus some additional days that extends that student's learning throughout the year. That's what we're trying to do in Project Lift, and Denise is doing a great job going out in the community to build support for that, and that's what we hope to be able to see happen at several of our Project Lift schools. What we're doing at First Ward, the proposal is different, and as you know, I think it was about a year and a half ago, there were plans to close University Park, create one arts magnet at First Ward because of the large number of students that would be served. The thought was to create a schedule that was being called year-round, but really it's a multi-track schedule. The students don't go to school all year. The building is used all year. So some students will come on and they will be receiving their education while other students track off, and then other students will track on and other students will track off. So the building is being used throughout the year, but the students don't go to school the whole year. And so it is a much different concept. It is a very, very complex calendar to understand. It's a very, very complex calendar to ask parents to make selections for, and on a multi-track schedule, you have to ask parents to, or you have to offer the opportunity for them to tell us which track would be most preferable for them. And I just felt, again, my promise is that when I bring something to this community and to the school board, that we will have done all due diligence, that we will have gotten a lot of community input, and if I feel like we've ever faltered on that standard, then I'm not going to ask the school board to take a vote on it. And I just felt that the complexity of the multi-track calendar being proposed at First Ward, there had not been sufficient amount of time for our community to really understand it, thereby giving us guidance and feedback in terms of did we get the calendar right. And that all has to happen before we ask the school board to vote on it, and then to ask the parents to actually select tracks. And so I've directed staff to go back and do an even more robust job of getting input from our parents, both at First Ward and at University Park, but also to look at the whole initiative and make sure I have a comfort level so that as I present it to the school board, I feel like we are in fact making the right decision, that we are following what the school board set forward in its guiding principles. And just to make sure that, again, at this point, even though the plan started before my arrival, when I present it to the school board, it's my recommendation and my decision that I'm asking them to ask on. And so I don't take that public trust lightly. I always want to make sure that when we make these important decisions, we've gotten sufficient and robust and proactive community feedback. And so we'll be doing that, and it's my intention to bring either that vote back to the school board at the October 30th meeting, or any recommendations or changes that I may feel are appropriate at that time. And so again, I do have Denise up here because I'm sure you may have questions about what is being proposed at Project Lift, and I think I could explain it really well, but why would I try to explain it when you've got someone who's much better adept at it and is living it? So with that, I'd like to take any questions that you may have.
Just real quickly about First Ward, what are the advantages of making it multi-track?
Well, the advantage is, again, on a multi-track school, what you're saying is we have a building that we have the need to use it the whole year. There are more students that we need to serve than we have the capacity to have in that building. And so if you can't expand it by adding portables or expand it by adding additional classroom space, then the concept of a multi-track school is we can get more students through that school by simply flexing the calendar. So really what ends up happening is that there's never a time when all students at that school are at that school at the same time. There's really no time where the entire faculty is teaching at that school at the same time. Can it work? Yes. But it has to be incredibly well planned, has to be incredibly professional development to get ready. And it's a constant state of the principal and the teachers having to do all the things that we know needs to happen in the professional learning community to build that sense that it is still one school, although the students will never see each other at the same time, and quite frankly, the teachers and the parents will never see each other at the same time. So it's not a concept that is about getting kids more time or even to eliminate the loss of summer learning. It's simply to utilize the building more than it might presently be used.
And save money by closing University Park then?
Well, I think that's part of what I've asked staff to do. I want to make sure part of the guiding principles in terms of the original proposal to close schools was that there would be financial savings. And I need to make sure that that is going to hold up. There are some additional things that you have to consider in a multi-track school. There is some additional busing that has to occur, bus schedules. There's some additional staffing that needs to happen. And so what I've got staff working on right now is what is the cost for the additional resources that will need to happen to implement the multi-track school at First Ward, and are they offset by the cost savings on the operating side of closing University Park? If that's not the case, and I've had conversations with staff in this particular situation, that was not one of the primary reasons for this recommendations. But again, I think for our community, what they heard very clearly was an expectation if we're going to close schools, very painful to do that. It needs to save money, and it needs to have us be able to say we're presenting a better academic program for children. So I've got staff looking at both of those issues.
So I guess, so what happened if the CMS plan is almost 2 years, a year and a half? So I guess are you saying that either CMS staff either dropped the ball or didn't explain it correctly, that why do you have to revisit this when everything should have been set in stone when you took office?
You know, Dedrick, I love your questions because I never figured out if you're asking a question, you're making a statement, okay? So I'm going to peel back the onion that is Dedrick. And it's not your birthday today, so we're not singing happy birthday to you today. And we're not. So I think what I'm saying, Dedrick, is that a multi-track schedule is very complex. And because the initial plans for it were started over a year and a half ago, a lot of things changed. And what I want to be able to always say to the community is, you know, we're not going to say, here's a decision, and be so stringent in our decision making, so convinced that we're always right, that we're afraid to go back and look at something and say, you know what, some of the variables have changed, some of the factors have changed. We have new data. You know, you also have a new superintendent that asks different questions. I had never had any experience on a multi-track schedule being in Montgomery County. When I went out to Reno, we had several schools on a multi-track schedule. I remember sitting in a principal's office saying, you know, tutor me, because I'm just struggling to understand multi-track. And I had a great principal go through and explain all the wonderful aspects and the challenges of a multi-track school. So if you haven't done it before, it's, you know, it's a new experience. And so I'm not going to say anybody's dropped the ball. I'm going to not say that there are anybody that has not tried to do this the right way. I just, you know, I have to have a comfort level now because, you know, we've crossed that threshold where I can say, well, those decisions kind of were done before I got here, and I'm just kind of signing off on them. Now they're my decisions, and so I take a lot of pride in that. I take a lot of personal responsibility in that, and I think as superintendent, I'm expected to ask those questions. When you go out in the community like I am and you're listening, that means that you're listening and you're getting better questions. I've always said if everybody needs me to have all the answers, we're in trouble, but I think people expect me as superintendent to ask really good questions and have people give really good answers that we report back out to our public. And so, you know, it's not actually that we're getting a lot of questions about this. We're not having a huge, you need to reconsider this, we want you to do a redo. But for us, that's not really what's important. For us is to make sure that every decision that we put forward in front of the school board meets that high threshold of every child, every day for a better tomorrow. So I'm just asking us to make sure we've gone back, done our homework, that all the data holds up. Again, it was almost 2 years ago that this initiative first started. So as data has changed, variables changed, conditions have changed, leadership has changed, I think it's at least important to go back and make sure that all of the original premises still hold up.
So come October 30th, what would be the options? Would things be as they are now, or what new would you bring to the table come October 30th?
I think at the what you're going to see is either for me to be able to go to the school board and say, we've gone back out to both schools, we've gotten a lot of community feedback, we've made sure that they understand the multi-track calendar. I think, Dedrick, that's really the point where we ask for a lot of input when we set our year calendar. And so we're asked questions like, do you want, what would be your preference, to have the whole day off before Thanksgiving, or a half a day, and then a half day over here, or a full day? Those are questions most parents are very familiar with. They're very quick to give us their opinions, and we need to listen. A multi-track calendar is completely different. It's, you know, and it's available on our website. If you look at it, I mean, it takes a while just to ingest the data and the different colors and what it looks like and what it would mean for your child. So before we ask parents to give us input, we have to make sure that we've done a good job of educating our parents about what it is that we're asking them to put on. Then, once we've gotten that input, I'll have a calendar that I feel we've listened to our communities, and I can present to our school board, and I can tell our school board when they ask, did you get community input? Yes, we did, and let me show you the data. So I think at the very least, being able to bring the calendar back for a board vote, feeling comfortable that we've done all of those things. But again, if I feel like there are some things that need to change in this plan, if I think we can create a better plan for students, we're always going to have the courage and the fortitude to look forward and make those decisions. No one wants to ask a question about the year-round calendar.
They got me all last night.
I know, but you're up here. Now, what I'm excited about is what we're talking about at Project Lift, because that is giving our students the gift of additional instructional days. It is lessening the loss of summer learning time, which we know has a devastating effect on academic achievement, devastating effect on trying to narrow and close achievement gaps. And so our premise, as we keep on calling our big bet, is that if we can limit that loss of summer learning for our students who are dramatically impacted by poverty, mobility, English as second language, lessen that loss of summer learning, and then give them the gift of up to 20 additional days, we can only not only stop that loss of summer learning loss, but then add to their instructional opportunities to really start closing gaps. And very proud of the leadership that Denise Watts has shown as our zone superintendent, and very proud of the way she's going out in the community and getting feedback. And we're listening. And again, it's just the approach that we're trying to do that I think is the right approach. It's a proactive approach.
Do you see this as being something that should be much more widespread? Because that's one of the concerns that came up at Denise's meeting and at First Ward University Park, is that if this school's on one schedule and this set of schools and everybody else is on another, that becomes really challenging. Do you anticipate trying to expand some type of year-round calendar?
Well, I think, and what I've said is, first of all, I'd like that opportunity to even begin to explore it. I can tell you in conversations with our school board, I'm pretty sure one of the things that they're going to want to put in their platform to advocate for in Raleigh is the flexibility for us to be able to create our own calendar. I've been very public about this. When people say run your school district like a business, tell me another business that doesn't get to set its hours of operation, try to get maximum efficiency and results. When you look at the fact that we serve well over half of our students in poverty, we see the devastating effect of having that much time off does their academic learning, and we can't even do something as simple as change the calendar. It's infuriating, and it runs against the very idea of every decision we make is best for teaching and learning in kids. So first of all, I want the opportunity to be able to plan with my staff, to plan with our principals, to plan with our communities, to say, would this work at your school? Would it be something that we would want to avail ourselves of? Is it part of our strategy to reach every child? And so I would like the opportunity to be able to sit and do that. Right now, we've only got that opportunity with our Project Lift schools. I thank our legislature. I've said very publicly we're very appreciative of the leadership of Speaker Tom Tillis. He was very much an advocate of helping us with that flexibility. So we have that opportunity with our Project Lift schools, and hopefully if we have some of our schools that do convert to that calendar and we can show that it really makes a difference, then we can go back to our legislature and show with some data that this will be a difference maker. Now, the broader question you're asking is, would this be a model we want to do throughout CMS? I think the thing about CMS is we're big enough that we don't have to have a one-size-fits-all strategy. And so what we can do is we can look at where our year-rounds needed most. Now, they're expensive, okay? And so, that's part of the, first of all, you want the opportunity to say, I want to do it. Second of all, you need to have the resources to do it. So I don't see any time in the future where we'd have the resources to do it throughout our school district. So I'm not even saying that that is an option we would want to do, is to do it throughout our school district, but to strategically make that part of our menu of offerings, and especially where we're having kids who we know what happens during the summer, to be thoughtful and strategic about that. I'd love to be able to make that part of our program and our plans. But first of all, we have to make it work through Project Lift if we see that through. Then we've got to get the ability to do it. Then we got to plan in terms of where it would make sense. And again, not to just go out to a community and say, hey, guess what? Great news, we've just made you a year-round school, but to work with our community, get them to understand why we're considering it, why we're proposing it, get input, address questions, just like Denise is doing with Project Lift, and then have people say, yep, that's an option I want for my child.
Is there any idea how much more expensive it would be to add the extra days?
So we're exploring that now, and it will depend on how many schools we roll it out to. But there are lots of implications that you have to look at. So it's one decision that there's a wave of other decisions that have to be made around salaries for teachers, transportation, professional development for teachers, because it's not just about adding time. That's not the value add in this endeavor. It's how you use that time, and we want to make sure that teachers have the skill set and the knowledge and the expertise to do that very well. So based on the input that we get from the community over the next month and a half, we will roll out a financial plan to address that. So I'll have more information then.
So it doesn't necessarily have to be all 9 Project Lift schools. It could be a couple here and there.
Sure.
Okay.
So you plan to roll this out next year?
If the community buy-in is there, then yes, the goal is to roll it out next year.
And do you think that would give you enough time, because we've already heard how, CMS may not do things, they need more time to implement such a big endeavor like this. So do you think that you would have enough time if you make a decision by December to have everything in place and ready to roll out by June?
Sure. So it is an issue of change management, and that does take time. I think one of the things that I have been encouraged to do, that I've been doing, is also not only engaging the community, but other departments within CMS to make sure that the planning and the thought process is there to ensure that it can happen with fidelity next school year. But I think what Dr. Morrison said just a minute ago, we're in a constant state of monitoring our progress, and if we get to a point where we can't do it well, then we don't do it next year. But the goal is we're managing toward a next year implementation.
Because I guess the community, what we're hearing is that, last year when you closed schools and used, I think these were guinea pigs, you used these students in a certain part of the neighborhood as guinea pigs, trying out K-8s and things like that. And then the next year now you're going to try out, year-round schools. So some people in the community would say, you're always picking on us, so you're always using us as an experiment, as to try things out.
Right.
What would your response be to it?
So I would say extending the school year and year-round schools is not an experiment. It's been done. It's been proven both internationally and in the national context of public education. And there are great benefits that bear out from doing that. So this is not an experiment. I think last week one of the parents and the teachers said, there are really not that many negatives other than change and people having to get accustomed to how that looks and the implications for the family. So I don't want to minimize those challenges because they are real, and that's why we're taking the time. But it's not an experiment. I wouldn't call it an experiment. It's a proven out strategy that works really with all kids. And in conversations I've had with parents that are not a part of the Lift Zone, they've even said, I wish my school did it. So it's not something, I think, what Dr. Morrison said, eventually we would want to look at doing it in more than just the Project Lift schools. That's just where it starts, because we have the financial backing to be able to start with 9 schools.
I think, Dedrick, the other thing too is, there's a very smart person by the name of Albert Einstein who said the definition of insanity is to continue to do the same things the same way and expect different results. We have schools that have chronically underperformed, and so we keep on trying the same strategies, then we're probably not going to do anything but maybe get slightly better results from year to year. And so we've got to consider different ways to do this work. We've got to consider different strategies. My goal, though, is to make sure that as we think about a strategy or initiative or what we are calling a big bet, that we do our homework, that we say, where else has this been tried? Is there any research to show that it would work here? If it's worked in some other area, how do we contextualize it for CMS? If it hasn't been tried anywhere else, I'm okay with that too, as long as we've done our homework and we've spent the sufficient amount of time to think why it would work here. And then to go out and to get community feedback and to get community input, and to not just go out and make an announcement, but instead to build a desire to get understanding, even to the point of, okay, even when there's buy-in to the idea, getting people to give us feedback in terms of the implementation of the idea goes a long way. And so we will try different strategies throughout our school district. Right now, with the year-round, the true year-round concept, we have the opportunity through legislation to try it at 9 schools. But we hope that we'll have at least several of our schools in Project Lift choose to do this, have communities that support it. We hope very soon that we'll show great data that it is a difference maker, and then we've got a heck of an argument to go to Raleigh and make the case that we ought to have that same flexibility for consideration throughout our school district. All right, I think I'm getting the body cues from Latarja and Tahira that it's time to go to our classroom. So thank you, and look forward to visiting the classes.